General syntax of the stored procedure is given here. As you can see, stored procedure starts with the keywords stored procedure or create procedure, procedure name, and the SQL statement, and go. This is what you write in stored procedure. And the procedure, and when you want, if you want to execute the stored procedure, at least in SQL Server, you have to use the word called exec. I think in Oracle you also do that. So in a simple terms, if you look at this, if I'll just copy this in my SSMS, pardon me, I don't have any customers table. I do have customer table, which is, I'll just say dbo.customer, and I can, as you can see, you have customer table, and if you just save this procedure, it will not execute like this. It will just save the procedure. When you click execute, it is actually executed, but it is not available to you in the table section. It is available in the programmability section. And in the programmability section, you click on stored procedure, and it is showing you this stored procedure. The main advantage of the stored procedure is that stored procedure runs on the server. So it is stored on the server. It is executed once, but can be when you call it, it is it is a kind of available in the memory for you. So it does not take much time to process it because it's available in the memory for you. And if you pass the parameters to it, it will take those parameters and execute for you. So it's an in-memory kind of an idea here. So now if I want to execute it, all I can do is exec, and you don't need to mention go as well, that's okay. It's just, it was a part of it that came to me. So now if I want to exec this procedure name, it will run. It will run the same thing. So it hasn't made much of a difference. You might be asking, what is the difference between then execute having a procedure or a view? Because literally that's the same thing we did in the view when we created a view. I don't think so I have a view available on this system, but I think we can create a view as well. How did we create a view? Create view. First of all, I think it will not let me create with the same name, but let's see. As let me just correct my syntax if I have any issues with the syntax. Create view name as, that's right. Create view as T1. Okay, so what's the issue here? Is it complaining about that, or is it saying? Okay, let me just copy the syntax from here. It should be same because that's what I was looking at. But Okay, I understand it. I understand my issue here. This is the view that is created. Now, if I want to just say, it's not the Brazil customers, but I just created it just for testing. Now, if I'll run this one, so there is an already, so I'll just go ahead and delete the Brazil customers because I didn't want it to create Brazil customers because I don't have any Brazil customers, but I'll just refresh it. It was just my intention to execute. So if I try to create the view with the same name as the stored procedure, it will not let me create that because the object is already with the select all customers name is already created. So the advantage, so I added a one to it, so I have a view now. And if I'll go here, the view and the stored procedures are not literally the same, but stored procedure execute by running this statement, and view is ran by running this statement, the view name. But literally, it's the same thing if I have the output of both. So I have a view and I have a stored procedure, but we can do so many things with the stored procedure more than view. In the initial stages, if you are just writing a simple statement or joining multiple tables without any parameters, view and stored procedures are same, giving you the same output. But when I extend this, I can do a lot more things with the procedure than a view can do. View does not accept parameters, and this is the disadvantage that we will see when we will be doing functions. And functions is very close to procedures as well, very close actually. So what other things that we can do with procedure then, if it is different than view? We can pass parameters to procedures. So I'll keep my W3 friend next to me so I don't incur syntax issues. So I will say I want to add a parameter. So I'll say, so I'll get rid of the view because I'm not going to use the view anymore here. Anything that is non-changeable and does not require a parameter, and if it's a complicated query, you have a couple of options. You can use drive tables, you can use common table expression, which I showed you a few times in one example yesterday, and you can use views. Only thing with the common table expression and drive tables is that they don't have their place of their own in this area, in this left panel of the SQL Server. So the most you can do is you can save them as a query and open that and run it. But it is not the part of SQL Server, you will have to save it as a SQL file and then open it when you want to run it. But not necessarily all the time you want to do that because we want some process automations, right? So automation meaning that you want some things to be passed and stored on the computer on the SQL Server and run it, which is one of the example is the view, one of the example is the procedure. So how we can save ourselves a bunch of hassle, that bunch of hassle that if we don't have a space available for drive table and common table expression where we should store it. Well, one of the solution, if you don't have any parameter, you can save the common table expression into a view. So everything that you are which you wanted to, as long as if you are selecting the records, you are not updating the record, you are not um, changing schema of the table, you can put the common table expression in a view, and then you can call it, as long as you are not putting any parameter to it. If the parameter is there, then you will either have to save it in a file as an SQL query file, or you have to start putting that in a stored procedure or SQL Server function. And SQL Server function is more is also a versatile, so it has a couple of things more than stored procedure. But let's start with the stored procedure. If you learn good part of the stored procedure, you will be in good hands to learn SQL Server functions. So now let's change it a little bit. This is the first time we are going to learn about how to pass parameter in SQL Server. And varchar, or varchar does work anyways. And usually I keep it 50 to 30 characters for the parameter. 30 to 50 characters depending. Usually I have set my standard that if I'm using nvarchar and I don't know the size of that, and I'm too lazy to see what's the size of the field and actual table, if I go to customer table and go to columns, I know the city is 15 characters, and if I don't want to tally it and if I'm lazy, I usually put 50 characters as a parameter, and no city will have a name longer than that, or no person will have a name longer than 50 characters. So now I'm not creating a procedure, I'm actually changing the procedure. So I will say alter procedure, and I can change it. So if I now save it procedure, I can change it or give it a different name if I want to, but let's see how I will alter the procedure. So now if I do this, I'm able to pass parameter. As soon as I do that, I will need to, when I'm executing, I will need to pass that name. City is equals to, I think one of the city was city is Cody. So if I run for the city Cody, now the parameter will work as like it works in any programming language. It is just like Java or any other programming language. You pass the parameter value, then that value will go here and will work here. At the moment, I haven't placed it here properly, so I will say where city is equals to @city. So what do you mean by that, city @city? Meaning that you are asking that for the city column here, take the value that is being passed as a parameter and put this value here. So this city and this city are different. This is a variable that you are creating, and the variable you create in SQL Server is with the help of symbol. If you are using the column name, you use the column name as usual, and this is the parameter value that you are passing. Now, if you have changed the procedure, each time you change a single thing in the procedure, you have to select that procedure and execute that. So go word, it is asking that go has to go, so that's why get rid of it. And now the procedure is compiled again. So every time there is a single change in the procedure, you have to recompile that procedure again. So now that procedure is updated. So now if I run it with this, it will not run because procedure definition has now this parameter added. So if I'll just try to run it as it is giving me the error that you need to pass the parameter city. to it. So now if I'll run this, it is going to run and showing me all the customers from the city query. So I don't have to type with this procedure. I don't have to type this whole query. This query is now embedded into this procedure, and procedure now knows that how you are, what you want. So this query is went inside, and all you need to pass is the parameters. Things can get more and more we can add to it, but at the moment this is the simplest one parameter procedure. So it is definitely now in a better situation than a view, because now we are able to pass to the procedure the parameter. Well, we can do that same with our view. If I'll drag this view here, but the procedure does not, but view will not have um, the functionality of having a parameter. We still have to type the old-fashioned way of doing things, where city is equals to Kobe. I cannot change it. I still have to do it manually here each time. Each time I need to change a city. But here in the stored procedure, I can change the city as my wish. So if I want to execute this procedure with this value, it will run. But here I have to go here in this, and definitely if user is running this value, and right now we are not seeing the full benefit of this stored procedure, we are just working as if we are working in an SQL statement, which just shows that regardless if you are giving the value to a variable and that variable value is passed into the where clause, but what happens if this value is coming from a variable on a front-end programming language, on Java or JavaScript or any other language, that this value will be passed to the procedure, and in return procedure gives us some result or a query result. Then we will have lot more benefits out of it that we can view it. All right, so at the moment we are not seeing the benefit, but if we are able to pass this variable coming from the programming language, then this stored procedure is already processed at the SQL server side. It will not need to be reprocessed. It is a stored result, and that is why it is called stored procedure, precompiled procedure. It does not need to compile this statement again and again. The statement is already compiled. All it is waiting for is the parameter, and it will return you the value. So that's the benefit of it. That's why it is much faster than running the query at the front end, because if you run the query at the front end, all the things that you learn here in this course, part of this you can do at the front end. Most part of it you can do at the front end. But what's the benefit of doing it at the back end is that you are using the resources of the server. You are using the power of the server to process this. If you run this on the front end, then processing will be done at the client side, which you don't want. First of all, depending upon what computer he is using, and you are exposing a lot of code to the client. And here, if everything is done at the server, you are first of all using the power of the server to process it, and most of the code is at your end. So that is why I prefer using the stored procedure. Now let's see a couple of other examples. Usually when that is done, I compile it. I compile the procedure, and I recommend you to compile the procedure if you are programming. I recommend to compile a procedure with the sample example. So let's say you know how when you run this program, when you run this procedure, this is the actual output. See that? Now when I'll compile it again, I save it with this procedure along with the information. So if I'll do this, save it now, it saves with the sample example. So 6 months down the road, when I open up this procedure, if it's a whole lot of complicated procedure, I don't need to go through this code. If I'll close this procedure or this set of a statement now, because I compiled it along with the sample example. So I'm going to compile and save it, and I included this commented statement inside it, so it will be a part of it. So if I'll go and close it, and now if I open up this stored procedure, right click, and I'll say modify. See, it opened up with all this information, but it has kept my example information with me. So I now know how to execute this procedure and what are the complications, or how can I how further how when I will complicate it, this will be a very beneficial information for me to save this information. Okay, so this is how I saved the procedure along with it. So if I don't need to understand what is happening inside this statement, I first of all try to run this, and selecting this statement is not a problem because it is giving me only the result. It is not modifying anything in this procedure. I can just quickly run this procedure without having to study what's happening inside. So when I run it with this commented statement, so usually when the procedures are saved, you always save it as with this information. And it's a general practice that your company wants as well. So for example, and I'm giving you a best practices how to save a procedure. So you will say that who is the author, right? So let's say this is Kashan, and what's been just like you are coding and putting your comments in your code, you can say that version number, so this is version number 1, so just a primary version of it, 1.0. If you're going to make a minor change to it, you can make a version 1.2, 1.1 or 1.2, and then a description of this procedure, and then also ticket number that for which you have created this procedure. So there's a lot of things, or for the project or whichever project that you are creating, you can just say for this project or slash ticket number slash project number. So you can say for which ticket and project you mean. And this procedure was created to view, right now it's a kind of a view, to view all the customers from the given city or the parameterized city. Once you save it, and now if you save it, seems like a lot more information on top, but now it is being saved along with all this information. So now if I close it, and then if I open this, modify this procedure, it has kept my comments along with it. that who is the author of it, what's the version number, what's the ticket number, what's the what does this procedure does. So you are saving a lot of information along with it, and then this is the how it will, how it is, or I call it just above it, I call it as a sample run. So that way you don't have to brag about it, what's happening inside, who did the last modification, and then now you have a version control of this procedure within the procedure code, and then you are just keep compiling it if you're making a small change. Once you made these small changes, you save it. Right off the bat, you open up, you'll see what's happening inside after the what's happening inside, who modified it. So let's say I made a small change and I want to add another parameter, and I'll say comma. Let's see what are the other cities. Let's see what is the other data. So I'm just going to say rep ID. So I'll say @rep underscore ID, and this is my variable that I'm going to create. Ideally, I would like to have the similar variable, so I can just say car 2. While I'm there, I was able to look at it, but I can leave it as my wish, and then I'll say where this is this, and everything else will work like the same in SQL. And rep underscore ID is equals to @rep underscore ID. So this is the column name, and again this is the value. Once that is changed, you can change this to a version number 1.1 and say that sales department asked for adding the rep parameter. So you now added a comment to it that this is what's done. You're changing the version to 1.1. Sample run has to be changed as well, but we haven't ran it yet. So let's change the procedure first. So let's change the procedure. You made this change. Procedure is now changed, but right now this run is not the most up-to-date run. So I will temporarily change this, and I can just say run it, and I'll say @. Sorry, I think I have to put a comma. Yeah, @rep ID is equals to rep underscore this rep ID. I'm going to just say I want to see 05, and I think there is no rep in 05, so I'll just call it by just looking at the data so much. So now if I run this one, Cody will be passed to city, rep ID will be passed to this second parameter, and now if I run it, and this has nothing to do, we are very disconnected, so I can just take it to another level here and say run this procedure. It is now showing me the procedure for the rep ID 05 and the city is Cody. So you are starting to see that this is okay. So once this is executing and you are satisfied, just put a copy of it here and then comment it, and then recompile it so that you have the most up-to-date procedure. Now if I go ahead and close this window and open up this procedure, modify this procedure, I have everything with me. I haven't lost a single thing. I have the version number, I have the ticket, I have the description, and also now I have the procedure itself, which is the meaty part of this code, which we will be working a lot, and then the sample run. And I can do a sample run right away by just selecting non-green portion or by not running the dashes. And if I'll run this now, it is going to run each time when I run it. So that's a benefit of having a stored procedure. A lot of comments, but in comments you have you have achieved what you wanted to achieve. So that is why this is the general and best practice of having a procedure. You must be asking, okay, this is the very small statement and we are why we are doing this. Well, this gives you a very good overview. Each time you change something, just make sure before you make it to the uh, and maybe also one more thing actually, what date and time you change it. So what date and time you changed this, so you can just put today's date or something. So then you will have a complete log of changes to the procedure. So some procedures will be changing quite frequently. Some procedures will not be changing quite frequently because they are there and done with it. But if some procedures requires a lot of business logic changes, because obviously parameters is a big role to play here now, because you will be passing a lot of information. And the other thing with this now, one more thing. So now you can see with the adding of date and time, you have every single time that you change something in between the procedure, please execute it with an alter. If you just keep changing it, change this statement from create to alter, and obviously when you open it in the modify mode. But make sure that if you once modify it, you will lose the previous changes. So if you have done a lot of modification, before do any further modification, I always keep a copy of it on my Notepad++ of all the. So once I reach a milestone for the procedure, because it's not like, you know, it's not like file save as. It it immediately compiles and saves it and does not give you any time to recover if it is not saved. So if you have made drastic change, each time you change something major, copy and paste it back. So start by keeping the log that for yourself, if you are doing a development, that this part of the procedure does this, then maybe, put a dashes here and do something here, and once you modify this procedure, this is this, and then copy this part and paste it here. So you have made the second time you had added another, parameter. So this is the first time you added a parameter and you don't have this parameter at all, and the sample run is not having that, so you keep this procedure. Now once you are done with that, you just add comment for yourself that I added this. So something, I added the rep ID. So something of this nature. So you have it. And because if you compile it and you don't know what changes you did, or you don't want to go back, or don't even want to think about it, what are the changes that you are doing, because sometimes it happens in a complicated day or a busy day, you won't want to go back to your changes that you made. You have the copy of it and you can go back. But the problem with this stored procedure, once it compiles, you cannot go back to the previous changes that you have. You all have to delete manually to go back to its original shape. That is the thing with the procedure. All right, so having said that, I want you to create a procedure now, a simple procedure. I'm going to close this now. And it says that you want to save the SQL. It's up to you. Want to save the SQL, doesn't matter, because you are saving the copies of it anyways. And this is my work, so I always save it as a backup copy of everything. So I'll just say I worked on this select all customer procedure, and this is my copy for a developer's copy. So at least keep some copies for yourself. So if something has changed or a stored procedure is accidentally deleted by someone, because these things can happen, it's somebody accidentally deleted because they are looking for the very similar object name, and they went on and delete this. Once it is deleted, maybe a SQL server guy, database administrator, has to recover it for you from the previous copy of the database, which is a lot more hassle. Otherwise, if you have the working copy of it before you give the final copy to the test environment. You can say that, okay, I can run it back again for you, so it is available in dev, and then you can move it in the production environment afterwards. 1.0, change it out. This was kind of the copy of it. So 1.1, you have this copy, so you can pick up the latest copy and give them that. So you always have that. So I will ask you to write a stored procedure, a very simple stored procedure, so that you have a little bit of hand sweat of how to write a stored procedure, and then we can go further. So let's meet at to get the result. A simple one. So a simple stored procedure to create to give the result of the first name, last name, and the invoice number, and it will ask for the input of the customer ID as input. I should be able to run this procedure with the exec command. It should not be a select statement. You can copy and paste and private message me when you are done. Any progress? Just a combination of two tables, not more than that. It is very important that you learn this right now, because next few topics that are coming will use stored procedures and functions are very close to stored procedures. You guys want me to write, or you guys can do it? I don't want comments in there. The comments was the best practices that I was showing you. Remember, inner join will continue to work. The joins will continue to work the same way that you have worked in the past. It's only the where clause at the moment that we are changing. Okay. Okay, I'll start writing it here. So I'll copy this procedure. I'm going to create a new procedure. So first time, I think I need to write this. And there is something called create or replace. So I'm going to create a new procedure and I'm naming it create or alter procedure with the procedure name. I just changed the procedure name. So select customer with invoice. Very relevant to what the description is. Usually you will be given some kind of a guideline how to name the procedure or something. It usually says sp underscore something, stored procedure underscore. So right off the bat, you will be able to understand what is the name of the procedure that is being asked from you. So you will put the procedure name and then what are the parameters. So it will only need to take the customer ID as the input parameter. So I will just say that I don't need all these other, and then cust underscore ID, and I think I can call it n. I think if I look at the data type of it, it is character. So I will just say varchar. I can just sorry, not varchar, just char and 3, and I know it will not exceed anyway more than this anyways, because in the actual database it is like this. So nobody will be entering, or it will not allow to enter any rubbish 4-character customer ID anyways. So now this is the author is Kashan. I'm just, while I'm here, I'm going to utilize this procedures comments. It's not really interfering anything with the code. Code is still needs to be written. So procedure, instead of say create procedure, I'll just say procedure to give the result of the first name, last name, and it will take the input as a customer ID. Obviously it is being created today, and I'm not going to make this as a sample run. I'm just, one thing that I just found online, that you can put something called create or alter procedure. So if you are creating it for the first time, it will run the create statement. From next time onwards, it will continue to run the alter procedure because the procedure will exist and it will continue to run. Now here's the issues that I have created already, that this parameter does not exist here. So when I will try to compile this, it will not let me create this procedure because it is looking for this parameter now, which is not there. So I'm going to get rid of it, and I'll say customer C inner join with customer with invoices. So I'll say dvo.invoice as I on C dot customer ID is equals to I dot customer ID, and I don't want all the columns, so I say C dot first name, which I want, which I can, and then I say C dot, very easy stuff that we know already. And the last one is I want the invoice number, so I dot invoice number from, and this is a compiled query. So at the moment I'm missing this part, so I can add it here, there. C dot customer ID is equals to at the rate customer ID. So now this procedure looks complete because that's what I was asking, and this is the only thing that I requested in this procedure. So the procedure is now compiled. When I go back into the customer procedure section and I'll click refresh, I have another procedure, sp underscore sales customer with invoice is now created. Next thing is I'm going to say, just test this procedure, exec the procedure name and the parameter. So I'll just say this. Keep in mind, you cannot give the parameter like this. You have to give the parameter and the value that for which you want to run. So I think I have a customer with the ID 275 already. 275. Is there a customer like that? I think so. With the customer ID. Nothing. Oh. So let's just quickly check if there is any customer like that. So I'm just going to check if I have what are the customer ID. 125, sorry. 125, 182 or anything like that. So I'm just going to call guy number 125. Sorry. 125, I have butterfingers here. And here you go. Run this, and now it is giving me Joy Smith with his 2 invoices. So now you know that yes, it can span across multiple tables as well. So we gradually expanding our horizon. All this part remained the same. We now know even up until like this point, everything remained the same. Anything that is changing, which is the variable that you are passing, that is going to be injected on top as a parameter and here, and put it like this. Now other good part is, let's say if you guys go back to the modify the previous one, one thing I want to mention is that with the stored procedure, I'll just copy this line. Sample run I'm not going to change. I will keep the sample run as it is. With the stored procedure, when you are running the stored procedure, if for some reason, which can happen, you might have a lot of parameters. If for some reason you have the parameter like this switched over, it really doesn't matter now. Because you are explicitly naming the parameter, rep ID will know you are calling the rep ID, and city knows that you are calling the city code. So even though they are switched here, they will be managed by SQL Server on the runtime. So it knows that you are talking about rep ID, and then it will be taken to it. But I don't call a way that you can call a procedure, or I don't usually like to call a procedure with like this, and I never actually saw on W3 schools something like this. So it didn't knew which parameter is going where. For that, you have to explicitly have Cody as first, and I never like to write it this way in the stored procedure anyways, but this time let's see if it does an automatic mapping. Yeah, so this time it does automatic mapping for you. So it now knows that the first parameter will have to be going to the city, and second is going to the rep ID. But this is the ideal way, that in an ideal world you will have the first parameter and the first parameter, second parameter and second parameter. And what's wrong with it? Nothing. So instead of running the procedure without knowing what is the first one, what is the second one, and staying blind of the as long as you know or memorize it, that's a different story. But if you like to save the procedure, run it um, with the proper sequence of that. And that's like, all these things are best practices. And if you don't follow the best practices, it will blow your mind up, because you'll, by the end of the day, you will be so exhausted not knowing where is what. This way you know what is happening, and it gives your little bit of sanity checks as well. So don't worry about this one. I'm going to get rid of it. So now coming back to what was asked in the, was anybody, tell me, was anybody was able to write this far in the assignment that I gave you? I gave you this statement only, and then I created this procedure. Were you able to write that, or you were having difficulty writing this stored procedure? Because if you are having writing difficulty the stored procedure, I would ask you to keep looking at it at the moment. That's the only thing I can help you. If you have any questions, please let me know, because I will try to fix it right now instead of waiting longer, because we are still a week and a half away from final, and we have a lot of things to cover here. So procedure is created. Procedure is always created with the procedure name and the parameter. If there is no parameter, then what's the point? Procedure is no different than a view. So the real benefit of the procedure comes when you have parameters inside. And once you inject the parameters, you will have better results coming. So yesterday I created a query, so I want to increase the intensity a little bit. So let's say I did this query yesterday. I can copy this whole query, and remember, this query was showing me all the customers with the total sum of balance greater than $40, right? This query. So if I'll just copy this query, this whole thing, I know it is working. We did it yesterday. Those who are in doubt can look into the. So if I want to see what is the purpose of this query, yeah, those customers who have placed the invoice line with the total greater than $40. Okay, so now we'll start to take the benefit of the procedure. Those customers who have placed the order, who have placed the invoice line with the total greater than $40 will get the $50 credit towards the balance. Only at the last moment I changed the select query to an update query. Remember that? I initially made the select query, and then at the last moment I changed the up to an update query. First of all, I want to see who those customers are. So instead of worrying about updating those customers, let's see view those customers. So I have this query pre-made, and this query is actually saved in a file called update query under my D drive, or whatever my place where I'm saving the query. First of all, this query is saved as a text file. I might lose this in a very quick succession, because I have experienced in the past. Because if I keep saving the query in the text file format, few months later I will not know what is inside which query. And I can show you the example here. This is all the code that I have written in SQL Server in the past. All right, you are seeing all this code. I don't know, I haven't written it very good for myself. Even I created queries, I created procedures, I did this, I did that. I don't know. I have to open up each query and now remember. So same thing, I don't want happen to you. I'm opening it and I'm just recalling everything and I know I remember it now. This is how much code I have written, right? You see that, and I have it all in my cloud drive. But I have to open up each query and check it out, what's happening inside. So saving the query as a text file is not the best idea. So saving it in the stored procedure, that is not even the best idea. But by just looking at it now and opening it, and at the very last moments of my writing the procedures, I started doing these best practices, which I was showing to you like this, because I was really crazy about what's happening in which procedure. And I've had, you just saw, I had hundreds of procedures. So having the proper naming convention, SP for the stored procedure, VW for the view, FN for function, which we will learn later on, is the best practice to do with the. So challenge is not writing the queries sometimes. Challenge becomes how to manage the data, how to manage what you have done in the past, and where it is pointing to and what it is doing inside. And that is how I learned that I need to put on what I've done, what's been done last in that, the log of everything, maybe version 1.1, what was done in the previous version, one version back or something. So you have a way to go back. You can keep the last prior version in a text file if you want to, or keep it in the deck in the text file. But having to do what is inside each procedure, what's been done, and what's the sample run of it. So you don't have to worry about each time you're opening and what's happening inside that. Let's see what's happening inside. And each time you will be spending a lot of time. So challenge will become, if you're working for 5, 6, 7 years in a company, and later on you first few procedures are your baby, that you wrote those procedures. But the more you go into the complex procedure later on, the more difficult it will become for you. So that's why I always like you to start saving your procedures in your professional career. College, we might not be doing that many procedures or that intensity of the procedures, but keep this. And if the company does not follow these practices, make them follow these practices. So you might have a repository in the GitHub for all the procedures, but when you open up that procedure, you still want to see what is happening inside that procedure. All right, coming back. So this is the procedure that I was showing you. So I can copy this procedure from here to here, and I know this is working procedure. I'll copy this. I will take this copy of this query and put this into a procedure. So this is my procedure done. I can go ahead. I'm not going. This is procedure done, so I'm not going to change. Once I will create a copy of another procedure, or I'm going to create another procedure, it will not change this procedure, because procedures are only saved when you select that procedure and click execute. So let me just save this procedure along with the sample run, which is my best practice, and execute. So it is saved. Now it is done. If I want to go ahead and create a new procedure, no problem. I'll go and create a new procedure, SP, and I'll just say, I'm gonna name it in a moment, and I am going to paste this sample query and underneath, and I'm going to get rid of this sample run because this is not the sample run of this procedure. Let me check. This is my query which I copied and pasted from yesterday's lecture. It is still giving me the right result. What I've done yesterday, that's what I've asked you to do. So I'll just copy this and paste this in this procedure, right? Those customers who have placed the invoice line with this and whatever the ticket number is, and this is the version number 1 that I'm creating. I want to give the procedure a good name. So I want to say customers, and I don't want to go too long as well because developers at the front end or the website development might be using this procedure or showing the report in an Excel or some other format. So as customer, sum greater than 40. I cannot use a special character like this in the stored procedure. You might know that. So you'll not be, I haven't tried that, but I will not be using that. So customer invoice line with the sum greater than 40. That looks a little bit more closer to what I have written in the description. And I'm not going to give everything. I'm not going to put everything that give them the credit of $50. That will be too long of my name of the stored procedure. So what's been required, at least I'm able to achieve that part. And now I'm going to put that, I'm going to remove this from the previous stored procedure. So now my whole procedure is now transformed into a new procedure. So now let's see. So I'm going to execute this. My first run is completed. If I'll go and say refresh, hooray, my second procedure is created. So this is not changing the procedure as long as if I'm standing in a different place or environment, as long as if I keep changing the name, it will not interfere with my procedure which I created, because procedures are only saved when you click execute button. So now this procedure is created. What is the procedure name? This is the procedure name. How to execute the procedure? This is the way to execute the procedure. Execute this procedure, please. Let's run this procedure. When I run this procedure, all this query that is written inside it, all this becomes a black box, and now you only have this execute procedure to run and show you this result. This is zipping it into, and you are just running just even one line. Execute, name of the procedure. That's it. You don't have to worry about all of this black box. I could have put this in the view as well because there is no parameter yet. Now the requirement is to add a parameter of what? $40. So does this name make sense anyways? No. So first of all, I'm gonna put the parameter at the rate, and I want to say I want to put the parameter on which quoted price. So at the rate QP, I can say quoted price at the rate, and there should not be any space, and it is a number, so I think I should be okay. I should say a decimal, I think. Decimal, and then decimal 18,2, if I'm okay with that. So now QP is created. I might have a little bit of issue showing the result, but that's okay. I will come back to it and replace this value with @QP. Now tell me, does this 40 make sense anymore? Because this 40 will be now be passed as a parameter, not as a hard-coded number, because now you are in a position to pass the parameter. Whether if somebody has the order or number of orders greater than certain limit, should I need to place that? No. So I am going to I'm not going to delete this procedure right away, but I can at least rename it or something. I'm not going to use this procedure in the future, so I'll just say obsolete or something in front of it, or do not use or something. So now it is gone. That procedure is gone. I can delete it when I will be running one day and getting rid of all the procedure. And I have to be really careful that I'm not going to delete anything that does not have an obsolete or do not use in front of it. Because if this procedure has been referenced in some other code somewhere by the developer, you might run into issues. So make sure that this procedure exists there. And I don't usually like this practice as well, but keep it for now. Now I'm going to create another procedure, amount greater than QP, which you will be passing as a parameter. And that's a new procedure that you are going to create, because this is a new parameter that you added in this. So now this procedure should be named as QP, and you will be passing a value @QP. Right now it is not. I have not compiled this procedure, but is equals to $40. That's what it is, I think. So you will be passing 40, but you're passing equals to 40 because you are assigning the value to this variable. This value is being matched with this sum of quoted price. So no, don't give greater than and equals to here. This is just a value of a variable that you are passing. Now if I'm going to compile this procedure first, let's compile this procedure. Procedure is compiled. Now if I run this procedure and pass this value 40, this is running exactly the same way that I want it to be. Now I have lot more grip on my procedure. The only problem that has happened now is that I had a luxury that I can run this query very fast if I on my own, very quick. But if I place @QP, problem is QP is declared on the top. And if I try to run this query, it will say you are running this query and you are just running this line. I don't know what QP is, even though QP is defined on the top. But the problem with SQL is that whatever you select, only that part goes into the compiler. So I cannot do this. So for temporarily, I can do this, which is again pain. So you can keep this on the side temporarily and then put the number that you want, so that at least you can test your result. Once you are done, once you are ready to finalize, and that's always been the case in SQL, you will see a lot of quotes, you will see a lot of comments. Once you are ready to done, so don't delete these statements. This is your working copy of everything. So now you are ready to go live. Before you go live, you replace this hard-coded value with that variable, and that will be a handful for you, so you don't have to do a lot of struggle. Because if you get rid of this line right now, later on somebody claims that this procedure is not working, this procedure is not giving us the right result, then you will come back and start to audit every single SQL statement, and you might need to write this again and again and go and back and check, replace the parameterized part of the query to a hard-coded value to check if their claim is right or wrong. You will be checking out each statement, whether it is working for $40 or $50 or whatever the criteria is. You might have to come back into the stored procedure and do that. And that's, I learned it the hard way, that I have to redo this part again and again and put it in the procedure, or take this query out a little bit temporarily, put it out in the different tab or something and run this. So instead of doing this, keep this, don't delete this. You know, after having, this is a commented line, so it will not going to be running. This is the line going to be running anyways. So keep this with you, and later on you can use it for your own benefit as a developer. Nobody will question you that why did you kept it. So now if I'll compile this program or this procedure, it has been compiled along with the parameter. So just keep in mind that is the way I like it. And then that this, now if somebody says that, oh, I don't want it for 40, I want it for 50, and this is the win situation now, because now your procedure is now capable of handling any number that you will pass. Instead of 40, it can run for 50. Instead of 50, it can run for 60. This is just for you for the sample run. What is coming out? If their claim is right or wrong, you can just inject their number, check out each query. Yes, at this stage my query is giving the right result. Yes, this stage my query is giving me the right result. Now if I run this procedure, my number of records might shrink now if I increase the dollar amount, let's say to 100, because I'm passing the parameter. Maybe I'll just change it to, so once I will type 101, not sorry, this is coming from a different query, so don't get mixed with that. But if I change to any other number, you will see, because this number is matched, this sum of invoice quoted price will be matched with the quoted price that you will pass. The more higher we will go, more people will drop out, right? So let's see if I run this query now. More people are dropping out. And it's not because this 100 is being calculated in another query which we learned yesterday. So now if I run this query for any number that I want to give, this query will run. So this is the sample run. It's been done. This is the sample run for me. Compile it all together. It's all done. Close this with confidence. I'm going to close everything with confidence, because now I compiled. This is too many tabs for me as anyways, so I'm going to compile it. Now this procedure is gone. As soon as I go here and click refresh, this is my right procedure. This is my older procedure, which I'm not going to use anyways, because they want. So the more dynamic you can make your procedure, more benefit it will be for you. But the more you add the parameters, the more testing you have to be done if it is claimed that it is not working properly. Now everything is there. I've lost nothing. It is just showing me everything. From here I will concentrate, because this is my meaty part, and this is my sample run. Sample run is here. So let's do this. Let's give them update in the balance. So let's try that out. Instead of selecting the records, I want to update the records. So once I did that, this will not going to be showing me the result, but because I changed the procedure, I need to select it again. Even a single dot change, you will have to recompile. So now it is done. Now if I'll say that I want to see that, but I will not be able to see the result now, because update select query is now being changed to an update query. Make sure when I will run it, I'm giving them the balance reduction of $50 of balance. Maybe I'll just change that to $10. But because I change it now, That doesn't mean that stored procedure knows that you have changed it. If I open up this procedure in a new window, just for sake, it is still standing at 50. Every single dot that you change has to be recompiled. So now if I'll change it, I will recompile it. Recompiled. Now give them the benefit of $10, which is okay. 8 rows updated. So the procedure ran, it automatically found out all the customers who have greater than and blah, 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 whatever I asked you. I don't need to go into the details of that because we covered that yesterday. We now have implemented it with the help of stored procedure, and the stored procedure is versatile that we can pass the number that we wanted. And don't run the procedures multiple times because it will start to give $10 credit to them each time you run this procedure. That's what we have learned, because update statement will continue to update the records unless you have learned what I've asked you to learn on your own about that commit and rollback. So that's it for me for today. I want you to do module 5. I'm just checking it. Critical thinking questions, and then you are free to study on your own on the stored procedure. The very example that is available on W3 schools for stored procedure is very easy one. The one procedures that we are starting to do from next few classes, that will be that will have a lot more things attached to it, lot more flavors to it. So start with learning with that. That should be a basic knowledge, but then this dives into this.